You know, and it goes back to this. My dad used to say this because they'd be like, well, it's who you know. And my dad would always say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Weapon X Holsters, quality handmade Kydex holsters made right here in southern Utah. You can stop by the store, 1397 West Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We are here in the vault, still coming up on that year mark. It's still kind of crazy to think that me, Mallory, and Blake with Blueform Media have kind of knocked all this out every week for almost a year now. So we're here today with a good buddy of mine. We've known each other for a while, and I've been associated with this family for a long time, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk about it. But this is Ruffin Judd. How's it going, man?
Great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this will be fun. I say this every now and then because I had about 20 people on a list when I wanted to start this. Yeah. That I was like, oh, he would be a good guest. Oh, she would be a good guest. And you were on that list. And I think I may even reached out to you forever ago.
Oh, yeah. Long time ago. I was going to say, it's been longer than a year ago, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's when I was kind of starting to think, like, is this worth it? Can I even get enough guests? Do we do it every month, every week? Like in the beginning, I was like, can we get 52 people? You know? So and it was like a concern, you know? Yeah. And so initially we were going to do like every other week because I was like, I don't think I can get enough people. I don't even know 52 people, right?
At least not interesting ones.
Yeah. And so anyway, I had kind of built the list, sent out a huge like group text, but singly, you know, and said, hey, I'm kind of thinking about doing this. Would you be open to it? And then I've mentioned it a couple times, but I put a post on Facebook and was just like, hey, if I was to do a podcast, you know, would you want to come on or who would be a good guest? And I think we had like 40 people the first night written down. So,
nice.
So I was kind of like, Mallory, we're doing it every week.
We can do it. We can do this.
We can fulfill this. Yeah. And then it's cool now because we're going to start bringing people back.
Yeah.
And so we've done like a few crypto podcasts and we've had Zach Duffy in a few times. Blake has filled in a few times when we've kind of needed someone last minute. So we've had some repeats, but we're going to kind of start checking in with people, you know, and see where their progress have been over the last year.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here. So
yeah. Well, we were kind of going over some topics before we jumped on here. You and I are very natural conversationalists. And so I think that we're going to get down some rabbit holes and get down some thought processes, which is great.
Out in the weeds a little.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I do it. That's why I think it's so fun. Yeah. But let's just back up a little bit. Let's start college, wife, kind of getting your family going, and then what we had talked about kind of being open-minded and being able to pivot into different sources of income. Okay. So let's kind of start there.
I think that probably starts about the time that you and I lost track of each other.
Probably.
Right? We knew each other through high school, and then all of a sudden I was gone for a little bit. Met my wife at BYU, Idaho. Went to school. Chose the school because they gave me a full ride scholarship, and my sister was going there. So it was like, hey, this school's gonna let me go to school for free, and so it just kind of made sense. I've always been about money. Concerned about it's been like my hobby, obsession.
Your stress.
Yeah, stress is a big deal, right? But I mean, even when I was younger, I'd tuck money away, you know, and hide and save for my mission and save for college, and so the thought of going there and not having to pay for anything was awesome.
Yeah.
But that wasn't it. No, I mean, I met my wife there, the first week we were there? That was in the first week. It was like 3 days of being there. Went to the church to meet our bishop. These cute girls were coming out. Returned missionary. I'm looking at girls thinking, man, which one's wife material? And saw my wife's roommate. You know, and I thought, oh, yeah, I could see myself with her, you know. So a couple things led to another, and I ended up becoming really good friends with my wife. We hung out, the whole first semester and a half without, like, really even dating. I think we probably knew each other for 3 or 4 months. Went tanning. I mean, it's Rexburg, Idaho, so had to get the sun in. Went tanning, went to movies, just did everything together. And kind of natural progression. I didn't want to get married. I always thought that I'd wait till I was 25. I had this plan in my mind, graduate from college, get my career going. At the time I was doing mortgage loans. So get my career going in mortgages, get started in the finance business, and then get married right after I like have my own house.
Yeah,
That's
set
what I'm
up.
thinking. Yeah, right. Right. Kids and wife, wait till they're 25. She had other ideas, which led me down the path that, I'm grateful for. So we got married after my first year of college. We had our first kid, 2 months after she graduated. So she graduated, and then a year later I graduated.
What's her degree in?
Marriage and family studies.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
She was studying it.
She did. No, she knew that we had a baby on the way, and she needed to figure out what fit. So she's got minor in dance and and floral design too. So
Cool.
yeah, all around girly girl.
Yeah.
But graduated a year later and couldn't find a job. My degree was in business finance, retail finance.
And what year is this?
2005.
Okay. So crash hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Well, right. And we were writing mortgages like crazy.
Yeah.
All through college. I mean, my goal was if I could do 2 a month, I could make ends meet, right? Like,
Yeah.
It was nothing. But we did, my last month before I went to college, we did 105 loans, closed 105 loans. And it was like, get up in the morning from 6 to 9, we're running 500 flyers, putting them on doors. We'll refinance you for free. And then we just sit by the computer and wait and take loan apps. So, I mean, we were taking people from 7-8% down to 5%, and it was awesome.
Right.
So, yeah, prior to crash. Eventually, I let my mortgage license go because of the whole RESPA, all the other regulations that had to come in because of the crash. So,
yeah, that kind of drove that, where it was like it was almost like whatever we got to do to jump through whatever hoops. I don't care what your income is, we'll loan you, right? I mean, that's kind of what it was.
Oh, yeah. What did you say you made? Oh, okay. Yeah, we can work with that, right?
There was a term for it, but it slipped my mind. It was it's like a no...
Stated income?
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah.
Stated income was the big deal for a lot of people at the time, yeah. And that's what got us into trouble too.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I don't know. I just wrote the loans.
You're just following A, B, and C.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, harsh. So I may have been part of that crash. Don't know if I should admit that. Yeah, at least in Rexburg. Yeah, at least in Rexburg, I know. Yeah, so my degree is in business finance. Couldn't find a job there. I interviewed with all it's not that I couldn't find a job. It's just I couldn't find one that I liked. I wanted to be in financial planning, but I grew up always having this plan of doing something that could help my parents. You know my family.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 13 kids, and my dad was a school teacher, right? It was all big on education. So I always thought, I have the ability to go out and help people and educate them about finances. I interviewed with Morgan Stanley here in town, Merrill Lynch, got offers from both, got offers from Northwestern. I had a whole bunch of offers. Nothing fit. And the reason why was, I think the Morgan Stanley guy said it best when he said, I asked him like what kind of clients I'd be dealing with. And he said, usually it's people with $100,000 of income, $250,000 to $500,000 or more in the bank, of investable assets. And I said, well, what can I do for my dad, who has nothing but a school pension, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, this is my dad's friend, mind you. I don't think he's still in town. He might still be. Sorry, Larry. He says, we don't have any products that will fit your dad's needs. And I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can't do it. Yeah, the idea of making $150,000 a year sounds really good. The idea of being able to teach people how money, invest for them, awesome, but couldn't do it. Took multiple tests for other companies, found out I was in transition at that time in my life, which means in the business world that you don't know what you want to do with your life. That's about how I found it. Yeah, that's exactly about how I found it. But ended up going into finance with Transamerica Financial Advisors. Loved it, loved the company. Still maintain my licenses with them because I love what they do for people. But for the most part, you know, my whole thought was, and this is all through education. We started in college, right? But all through my education, it was I knew what I wanted to do. Right? I knew I wanted to go out and teach people. I knew I wanted to go and help people do something. I wasn't sure if it was finances, if it was, you know, teach them how to do ballet, whatever it was. But I thought, hey, I can go back and give to the people I know. And that was my big goal.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned something too, though, Derick. You said you weren't sure if you could fill 52 people here, right? But at least you had a plan. And that was the thing for me. Like, I didn't know what my plan was. I didn't even have a plan to, like, go towards. I was just interviewing to interview. I was going to college because that's what they told me to do.
Well, you were what, 24?
When I graduated, right.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have had that plan at 24 either.
Right. Well, and so I'm like often thinking about, like, what's my plan? What's my next plan? And it was hard because I felt like I didn't have a really good plan.
Yeah. Well, it was like you had fulfilled step 1 and step 2, and then what?
Right. And where do I go next, right?
But I think that's probably by design in life as well. Is it's like you're saying, you had a plan, you got through step 1, you got through step 2. Okay, well now, like maybe now it's getting hard. Maybe now I'm starting to question the plan. Maybe I need to pivot.
Right.
You know, maybe I need to push through, and it breaks a lot of people when they get to that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people call that midlife crisis too.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
You know, like at some point they're like, wait, what?
Well, I think that's a lot of college graduates as well. Not a lot of, but there are college graduates that go through that. Mm-hmm. It'd be at least you had a usable degree. You know, you just your thought of your career, the thought of what you wanted to do to help the person behind you or the person that you grew up with or lived next to you or your dad. You had the plan to do that, and these bigger firms didn't, like you said, didn't have a product to serve that customer.
That's true. And I feel like that's probably what's led me my whole life. I kind of feel like I'm a people pleaser. I'm fascinated by people and why they do certain things. So it just made sense for me to be doing something to help people.
Yeah.
So I feel that's the same thing with like all entrepreneurs. You've had a lot of us on this show, right? We've talked about it in the past, like how rough business can be at times and how those business cycles go and how not just any college grad could deal with those ups and downs, right? And it's loop-de-loops and left and rights and this did work, this didn't work. Oh, I sold this much, I had to do this many refunds or returns, or this guy backed out of the sale, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or rent's too high, whatever the process is, right? Like I feel like if you know where you're going or at least have a plan to like get there, you can fail as many times as you need to. You just get back up and do it again. Yeah. And a lot of people miss that.
And step 1 is to start doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
the hardest part.
Mallory and I have talked about that a number of times. And when she was transitioning from producing another guy's podcast. That's actually how we met. I was on someone else's podcast and she was the producer. And then she moved away from that and started this. And she was kind of like, hey, I just wanted to run some ideas by you. And she's like, everyone just tells me to start, and that's great. But like, you know, I need more than that.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you gotta understand, like these people want you to start because 90% of people don't.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here trying to build this business plan around you as like a friend or trying to help you. And then I know that 90% of the people, that's as far as it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so like you're saying, it's like, so you have to start on the journey. Yeah. Have a plan, be able to be flexible. I have that problem. Being a red personality, it's my way or the highway. You know, I have it planned out. I know what's going to happen. I've pre-thought every discussion I could have, you know, and I've been through all of that. And then you realize there's still times that you just can't control it and you got to maneuver.
Yep. Change course.
Yeah. That's a big part of it. I didn't realize that was because I'd controlled so many things about my life. And I mean, to this day, I still have things that I've put in place that I'm still working on for future. I use the example of getting into our house. For years, I've carried all of our debt, mine and my wife's debt. I have all of our vehicles on me. Everything's on me because I knew that it's hard to prove my income. And she has a 9 to 5 at the hospital. It's fairly easy to prove her income. Right. And so I freed her up to be able to go make that big purchase of our home by carrying debt because, you know what I mean? So but I had that stuff in place before I knew her. You know, I mean, I knew that that was the
right.
plan before I had met her. I don't even know how I got started on that, but just having a plan, not being able to control it. There's things that has worked out in my life, and there's things where I had to bite the bullet and I mean, well, like the safe store. The safe store, when I started that, the location we're at now, it was a shooting supply store. So I was going to have holsters, ammo, tripods, you know, apparel. Like I was going that way with it. Have a couple safes, and we had brought in. So I teamed up with Dixie Gun and Fish. So I had some of their products. I had some of our products. Maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8 safes when I opened the doors. And in a week and a half, I was sold out. Yeah. And I was trying to get ammo in. I was trying to get all these other things in, and the safes were gone. And then I kind of sat down and thought, well, maybe this is a safe store.
Yeah.
And then that's when and originally when I opened the business, it was a safe store. So I was trying to pivot away from that. And then I realized, no, this is what it needs to be, is a dedicated safe store. And now we're going on our 4th year. So
yeah. It's awesome. I'm just jealous and wishing I was Dan Papa at the moment right now.
Have you talked to him about that?
Yeah, I called him right up, dude. I should play the Marco Polo we had back and forth.
I still have. I keep forgetting to text him. Yeah, so for those that don't know, we did a big tent sale. We did a giveaway. Derick Staley with Discount Pawn helped us out. We gave away a Browning safe, and Derick Staley gave away 2 rifles. It was like a $3,000 grand prize.
Yeah.
We had 200. It was over 200
entries.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think we had like 215 with some of the extra entries that people could do duplicates.
Yeah.
So about 200. And and there was probably, I think we counted like 140 people out in the parking lot. And so there was a guy flying a drone. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've got a video of it too. Of you read in the winter too.
He sent me all of the drone footage.
Nice.
So it was like, and I don't know who he is. He was just like, hey man, I was at your event. And
oh, that's awesome.
So I was like, dude, you ever need anything, you hit me up, dude. I'll be there to help you out.
That's awesome.
But anyway, so we had kind of an automated spin the wheel, has a name pop up, and our mutual friend, Dan Papa, wins. And he's not there. You had to be present to win.
Dude, you want to know what? He was across the street up at the movie theaters watching a movie with his kids.
No.
And he's like, tell him I'll be right there. I'm like, sorry, buddy.
We already
You missed it.
Well, and right before that, I was testing the whole system to make sure it all worked.
Yeah.
And because we had a TV we plugged into and stuff. And I had spun it, and one of my other friends had popped up. And it's Kay Waters. And I texted him a picture. Right, his niece was right next to me. Oh, and I said, send that to Kay and tell him he won, and I'm going to give him 5 minutes to get here. And so he's like, I'm on my way right now.
I'm coming.
And so he finally gets there, and I'm like, and by then he'd figured out it was a joke, you know. And I was like, sorry, man, I was just testing it, and it was too teed up to not do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, I keep on thinking I need to text Dan and be like, hey, so sorry about that. But I know there's like a dozen people there that knew you.
Yeah. I almost said I was him, right? And I'm like looking around, you know.
Well, there were people that was like, so what if my dad's just there? I was like, dude, I'm trying to be as fair with all this as I can, you know.
Nah, it was a fun event too.
Well, it was weird, man, because like 20 minutes leading up to the drawing, I had my head in the laptop trying to get all the extra entries added in and make sure that I took all the dumb names out, that one of them ended up winning. And now I don't even remember what it was, some dirty name. And then but I went through and took out like a dozen dirty names.
Gosh.
And so I'm sitting there like head buried in the laptop. And I happened to like just pick my head up for a minute. Like someone had came up and said, hey, Derick, I'm here to support you, but it looks like you have a lot of people here already. And I kind of picked my head up and looked in the store. There's 70 people, 80 people in the store. It was packed.
Yeah. And then so was the parking lot, right?
Yeah. And so then I went outside to be like, maybe we need to move these people outside because I don't think it's going to work in the store. And then there's like 100 people outside. I'm like, geez.
Good turnout.
So, but it's cool. Obviously we gave away guns. That's going to draw people no matter what.
Always, yeah.
But it was cool because I was looking out when I was doing the giveaway, and there was, I mean, a countless amount of people that I was looking at, like you and my buddy Alex Stout, Tyson Covert, that helped me do all the marketing with it all. My family, my siblings were there, but just looking out and seeing all these people, and it's like, hey man, like, yeah, we're giving away guns, but all these people are here to support us.
Yeah.
And we've tried to be like community driven from day one, not salesmen, try to help people. I've often sold a cheaper safe to people because I don't think they need the more expensive one. Try to be as honest as we can. And then we do events like that with free food, and we have people drive by, didn't even know we were there, but they want to grab a free hamburger.
Yeah. Free food's always good too. Free guns, free food. Yeah.
Yeah. So Derick Staley throwing in guns was huge for us. And then he was too slammed with it's not new, it's fairly new, the Cedar City Fun Center.
Yeah, one of his partners in that is my neighbor. So
I
really hear lots of the good stories about how much he's growing that. So
yeah, and he's jumping back and forth between that and the pawn shop every day trying to fulfill labor hours, and
that's awesome.
But that's the hardest thing right now is, I mean, I've got me and Abe, high school kid, running the store.
That's awesome.
And it's like today's a good example. I had a delivery out in Mesquite, so drove down to Mesquite this morning. Delivered this safe, and I'm by myself, right? So I've got a 600-pound safe, and I have the tools that make it possible, right? Like I always show up, and people are like, "Just you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, me and my $5,000 dolly." Yeah, And so I scoop it up, take it in her house, put it in the master bedroom, set it up for her, change the lock combination, all that stuff. And then I get back in the truck, and I have one more delivery in St. George, and I start realizing like I'm not going to make it. Like I'm not going to, with the construction and whatnot, it slowed me down. I was going to be late. And so I reach out to this customer, hey, I'm probably gonna be late today. Just letting you know, trying to give you a heads up. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm by myself today. I don't have any help. It's taking me a little longer. And the response I get back is, and I said, is that okay? I'm going to be this time. Is that okay?
Right.
And he says, sounds like I don't have a choice. And I'm like, and I get it. Like as a consumer, as a customer, I totally get it. I've been that guy a number of times. Yeah. But I just think like, dude, I'm one dude, man. Like I'm trying to do this by myself, and Abe and my mom helps a little bit, but, where I was going at was, I know where Derick Staley's at with the whole thing, bouncing around. And I mean, what are your thoughts being a money guy, owning businesses, supporting businesses, like how labor's going right now? How does anything stay around? And like side note, I think it's planned. Like I think it's out there, as the conspiracy theorist side of me thinks it's planned. But like I tell Abe, so we've got McDonald's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Del Taco, all these fast food places right around our store.
Right.
Abe's 17, junior in high school. And all these places minimum, you're like $14 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm paying him less than that. And so one day I asked him, I just said, hey man, like, I just got to know, like,
Why?
I'm even tempted to close it down and go work at Arby's, $16 an hour, I'll run the whole place.
Yeah.
And I just asked him like, why? And his response, like the kid for a 17-year-old, I praise him all the time, but he's just different. Like his mind works different and he's very entrepreneurial based, but he says, no offense to Taco Bell employees, but they're not having the same conversations I'm having here with you. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, dude, I mean, you're right. That would be hard for me as a 17-year-old to not go make more money, but he's placing himself, and he's not even talking about just me, but we have a lot of customers that are entrepreneurs that come in and I talk more than I should. So I'll get people queued up in a conversation and then he sits there and is a sponge and just soaks it in. But so that's my example of how we're making it work. But just as a business in general, I don't know how it keeps going.
It's hard to say how labor costs can affect. I'll get on 2 points. Firstly, that, the labor costs, the cost of being in business, like I've said before, and throw on top of it all the regulations too, right? Like you got to meet all the regulations. You got to file your 941s and your taxes and your sales tax and all that other stuff too, right? So throw on top of it the administrative side of it too, and it's just can be overwhelming as a business owner, right?
Sure.
But you can't discount, like he's saying, you can't discount the quality of people or conversations that you have in those scenarios. Another perfect example is my dad or my brother, and my two brothers are running the car dealership now. And they've got a guy who cleans cars for them. And you've detailed cars before, or at least your own. It's hard. It sucks. And in St. George, if you're doing outside, which he is under a little lean-to, it's difficult, right?
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's not work that I'd go back to doing. I've been there. I put in my time. Don't want to ever do that again, right? But they're paying him less than he could be getting anywhere else, right? And I've heard my brother say, I hope he doesn't realize, or I hope he doesn't decide to leave because we really need him. He's been very, but he gets to hang around with my brothers and they have conversation back and forth. They include him. They make lunch, there, and they're like, hey, come grab a burger, and they include him as part of it. So I feel like that's the first part of it. The second part is connection, right? I feel like that's a key part of, this whole pandemic, whatever anyone wants to call it, right? It took away our connection.
Yeah.
It took away our ability to connect with one another, to see each other, to really see each other as God sees us or as we are in reality, right? We're more than just some lump of cells.
Right.
Right. And it took away that connection part. So to being able to connect with somebody, sometimes you'll do things for people just because of your connection with them, right? I know I do it all the time. My next door neighbors go out of town. They're like, hey, we need you to go check on our plants. What do I benefit from checking on their plants, right? Like, not at all. But the fact is, I have a great connection with them, and I'm going to go help them because of that connection.
Yeah.
Another example, dude, I was having a rough night. Okay, so I just started working out again. It's been 10 years since I've done squats, and I had a rough day. And I came to the gym, and I'm like, I'm going to go do some squats, work this frustration out, right? Was mad at everything. I was mad at my house not being cleaned. I think I even had gotten in a fight with my teenager. And as dumb as it was, I got done doing squats, could barely walk. I go and I sit down in the locker room, basically, and I just sat there, and I was like staring at the wall. The TV's blaring. Like, I got my AirPods in, but there's nothing playing, and I'm just sitting there like, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? Kind of meditating, but not really. This guy walks up to me and he taps me on the shoulder, and, I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? He's like, I pulled my AirPods out. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah. Do I not look like that's what ran through my head was like, do I not look like I'm all right? But obviously I didn't, right?
Yeah.
It's this guy, random stranger, dude, like, don't know him from Adam. Probably will never see him again. But the fact was he cared about me, right? And we connected. In that moment, we connected. And it was like, hey, thanks. Like immediately I felt better. I was like, dude, somebody cares. Whether it's somebody or somebody, right? Somebody cares. And they had enough time to stop and have a quick check-in with me, right?
Right. Just
as a brother. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't know why he did it. Maybe he had some kind of like feeling prompting, or he looked over and he's like, dude, that guy might kill himself. Like, I probably should say something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times that's what keeps business rolling. That's what keeps us in business, especially local business, especially local entrepreneurs, right? I go into Derick's pawn shop. We'll use Derick again. I go into his pawn shop and I look through stuff there. Even though I'm not going to buy something or I'm not in the need for it, I'm going to stop by and say hi.
Yeah.
See if his dad's in, ask him how guns are going, right? Like, just to chat sometimes, right? Just because.
Yeah.
That connection is important. And I feel like that's the same thing here. You got your podcast going. It's the connection part, right? Like, people want to be on it because they get to come and connect with Derick. We haven't sat down and had great conversations. I remember lots of times picking up boxes of safes at your 4 safes at your store,
boxes,
right? Like, yeah, right. And loading up the truck full of cardboard. And we just had conversations, right? Like, how's business going? I'm partnering with this person. And to me, that's always been the important thing.
Yeah. When you guys were at the car lot, you and Brent, it didn't happen a ton, but I loved stopping by and just being like, what's up, guys? And just chatting. And I didn't, I think that connection comes from, like, I didn't expect anything out of you and you didn't have any expectations out of me, but just being able to sit down and yeah, I mean, connect, I guess is the best word, but just not wanting anything from you or expecting anything from you.
Right. And so then if you called and you said, hey, Ruffin, I need this, or hey, can you find me this truck? We're that much more likely to be like, hey, yeah, Derick needs a truck. Let's go look, right? Whereas every other client or customer who called that was just some random Joe, I just tell them I don't do that for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
You will go out of your way for those people. And I feel like that's one thing that will keep our businesses going, but also it'll keeps good customer or keeps good employees there as well, right? And it keeps the customers.
Yeah.
You provide a great service for your customer. You let them know you're not going to be there, even if they're not happy by it. Look, you're going to show up with a smile on your face tomorrow. You're going to deliver it, or whenever. You're going to deliver it, and you're going to say, hey, sorry I was late. Unforeseen circumstances. Hope everything's well. If you need anything, let us know, right?
Sure.
Rolls off your back. You move on, But you never know how that affects that guy's day, right? And you never know how that connection could change your life. Dude, that guy may be the brain surgeon that has to do work on your best buddy's brain tumor, God forbid, right? Like, you don't know. You're one connection away from changing your life, right? And I feel like that's a lot with, like, I've seen a lot of your podcasts. There's a lot of people that get on here and they talk about their mental health or they champion their cause, right? They got the connections, right? Yeah. They're connecting with people. I think that's a big deal, right? You look at politics, you look at successful people in general. It's always about connecting with people and providing a service that's greater than the money, the exchange, the good, whatever that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like with the retail store. So I've always said with both of my parents and my mom and my dad's personalities that my family's like bred to be in customer service. Cause like, yeah. And I'm more than my siblings are about with talking. Like, I talk a lot. But all of my siblings are good with people. Like, we're not awkward. Like, Adam used to be shy. So, like, I guess if there's anyone, Adam was shy. But anyway, so I've met so many cool people just from them coming in and maybe not even buying a safe, but just stopping by and looking to see what we had. And even like some of the old guys that just come in to see what the store's about, like they just see the big yellow safe outside and they're like, oh, we'll go check this place out, But I've met in today, we've got this huge project coming up. I just got all the product in. I drove up to Provo and picked it up last week. It's a 1,800 pound vault door that's all custom made. Wow. And then he's doing, and we're going to have a bunch of media posts about this, so I'm not nervous about telling everyone his plan. Right. But his whole wall, he was going to do like bookshelves and stuff around the door. Well, he ended up kind of coming to us and saying, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I don't know if it's something you guys would want to do or a manufacturer would want to do. So Fort Knox will do custom things often. Right. They consider themselves a custom safe store or safe manufacturer. So he wanted to do like the vault door, and then the whole wall that his vault door is mounting to, the same like distressed metal panels that the door is. The whole wall. So the whole wall is going to match the door. And in the beginning, it was just like do some panels that are just kind of painted the same. Well, it's evolved into like the whole thing is going to look like it's riveted together. It's got like 3-inch straps going in between every piece of panel. Cool. And so we just went and picked it all up. And I mean, it was, I don't know, 2,200 pounds worth of metal. and so the guy came in today and it was probably end of last year, the first time he came in. And now we finally got all the product done. And he's building, he's like maybe 2 or 3 weeks away from us going in and installing all of it. And I don't know that I would ever meet this guy.
Right.
Like we would never
Right.
cross paths. He lives a mile away from my store, but I would never know him.
Right.
And now I've had like so many good conversations with him. His name's Brett Carter. I've had all these cool like text messages back and forth, and like Fort Knox would send me a update picture or something, and I forward it, and we've just had this crazy connection.
Yeah.
And he comes in today and pays for the product, and the week that he wanted to do it, I'm going on a bear hunt. And so I said we might have to be before or after that week, because I'm gone that whole week.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the 1 week in the last 4 years I've been able to go anywhere. And he's like, oh, so what are you doing? And he's got like a Vortex shirt on, and I know he's into guns and he's hunting.
Got a beard.
Yeah. And he looks sharp. He looks like the guy that's probably hunting like some mountain goats, some bighorn sheep, because he's fit enough to do it.
Yeah, you could
That's
chase
not
him.
me.
You could chase him up the hill. Yeah.
Up the
Okay.
vertical hillside. I'm more of like let's throw some bait out for a bear.
Sit in a tree. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we just sat and talked. We
Yeah.
talked for 5 minutes on, so I'm doing this bear hunt, and I told him about it, where we're going. It's all guided, the whole thing. And then he's like, man, that's so cool. He's like, I'd love to go do something like that. And then he says, my father-in-law's got this property up in Wyoming that they have trophy bull elk up there. And he owns so much land, he gets landowner tags. And he's like, I ended up getting one for Christmas from him this year. And so he's telling, and so when he left, we shook hands. Hey man, thanks for, we'll hit me up in a couple weeks. And he left. And I thought that, like, I kind of sat back and thought, I never would have met this guy. And now we have this connection that if he needed something, I'd take care of him. Yeah. If I needed something that I knew he could help with, I could shoot him a text, and I bet he'd come over and help me,
And worst case scenario, he could direct you to somebody he may know that could help you.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And it goes back to this. My dad used to say this, because they'd be like, well, it's who you know. And my dad would always say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Yeah.
And I'd always kind of sit back and be like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I might know Ruffin, but if I got to go in and get a car, you might not know me. Well, back when you're at the car.
Bug off, right? No.
Yeah, you can wait in line.
You're Adam's brother? What?
Exactly.
You probably get that every so often.
Are you Adam's brother? Are you older or younger?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, everyone thinks Adam's the oldest. I think because he's like established in town. Like a lot of people know him.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks it goes Adam, Mike. And then I'm just stature-wise, I'm so much bigger than all of them.
Right.
But I'm so much bigger than Jason, because Jason's the smallest. Well, he's taller, but he's skinnier than all of us. So everyone thinks it goes Adam, Mike, me, Jason. And I'm like, no, I'm the youngest. Well, boy, I'm the youngest boy.
Youngest one. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you're Adam's brother, right?
Adam makes me look bad. He's always coaching his son's team, and my wife's like, why don't you go coach a soccer team? Why don't you go? I'm like, we can't all be that good. I mean...
Dude, speaking of Adam, dude, they are ridiculous in kids' sports, man.
I love it. It's great. My son is his son's age, and so, like, my son's not as athletic, and so he comes home sometimes, and he's like... I don't know. I don't want to play basketball. I don't know if I want to go to the football camp. And I'm like, why not? And he's like, because I'm just not good. I'm like, how do you know you're not good? You've never played before.
And you're 10?
He's like, yeah, 4th grade, right?
Yeah.
He's like, all the other kids around me are so much better. I'm like, oh my gosh. But they are. They're like my wife called them the unicorn year. Like my daughters are on a dance team. Mm-hmm. And their junior year class that's going to be seniors next year, like, almost 2/3 of the team is made up of these. They're like elite dancers. They're great dancers. And they've won state 3 years in a row, right?
Is that Dixie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over the Jetettes. Throw that out there for all
Yeah. Shout out.
Throw that out there for all my friends who are at Crimson or Desert Hills. But they just have these dancers that are just good. And I feel like that's the same class of kids that Rowan's grown up with, is Derick's son, right? Or no, Adam's son, right? Adam's son's awesome, and all of his friends are like elite athletes, and they're in 4th grade.
Yeah. I've gone to a couple of their games, and I'm just looking around like, there was this one game they played basketball, and like it was like, I don't know, like 70 to like 12 or something like that. And that's not exaggerating. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And I told Adam, I'm like, dude, how old are these, like the opponents, the other team? I'm like, how old is this other team? And he's like, dude, they're a year older than us.
Yeah, they play up in
like,
most
what?
stuff, right? Yeah, the football, the 7-on-7, the basketball, like it's awesome.
So in church the other day, Adam gave a talk, and it was about setting goals, and it was a good talk. But he had mentioned at the end, he was like, hey, if any of you guys are ever bored on Thursday night, our football team, right? And he kind of throws it out there. And he's like, our fourth grade football team's playing. He's like, we're pretty good. We've never lost.
Well, we went to the championship game. My son goes there to support his friends. He's got a bunch of friends on the team. And we went to the championship game. And we got there like 5 minutes into the game, and it was 35-0. And I'm like, what time did this game start? Like we go and sit down by one of the friends' moms, and she's like, yeah, it's first quarter. And I'm like, looking at the scoreboard,
like how's that possible?
Right. Like, yeah. And then they throw a touchdown pass, and I'm like, that's why.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's why. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. They had a championship game. It was probably 2 years ago. And I went to go watch, and as I'm walking up, Coach Hosner's there.
Oh,
and
of course.
And he's like hoodie, like hat on. I mean, you wouldn't even know him. You never know it's him. Mm-hmm. And I think he was talking with Derick Sorensen, or he was with one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I think Sorensen's like, hey, as we kind of walked by, and I stopped, and then I was like, oh, it's Haas and Derick. And I was like, Haas, what are you doing? Like, do you have like, why are you here? And he's like, oh, just scouting out talent.
Of course.
And I just started laughing, but it was cool. So I guess what happened, this is goes to Coach Haas. So he's the people that don't know, he's head football coach at Pineview for
his
years?
first year coaching there, but not as head coach under Sark, was my senior year. So 2000.
So 20 years.
22 years. Yeah, 22 years. He's been there. I think he's been head coach for almost 20.
Yeah, and it's hard to find someone that doesn't love the guy.
Oh, yeah. And that he doesn't love or remember their name, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And like I didn't play football in high school, and he still, every time I see him, that leg, of course it's easy to just call Saul leg, right?
Right.
But he's like, leg, what are you doing? And so anyway, so I walk over, what are you doing? Oh, I'm scouting talent. So the story behind it was Adam and Jordan were with Hosner the night before.
Okay.
And Jordan jokingly was like, and Jordan doesn't talk much. So like jokingly, he's like, Coach, you coming to my game tomorrow? And Coach is like, yeah. He says, when is it? And it's tomorrow at 3 at Desert Hills. And Haas is like, I'll be there. And then he's there, and I'm like, he's got 1,000 other things he could be doing.
Yeah.
And again, I'm tying this all back to connections.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know if I'll ever get Adam to come on and do this. This isn't really his scene, but in life, he's had phenomenal mentors, phenomenal coaches, and there's a few people, including Coach Haas. I mean, Coach Haas would take a bullet for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And he's been there for every baby blessing, every baptism, everything. When our dad died, all these life events that have happened, Coach Haas has always been there as like a second dad to Adam.
That's awesome.
And honestly, I was always a little jealous because I never played football. And so, I knew that he was still there.
Yeah.
But like, I was always like, man, I probably should have played football to have that same relationship that Adam had with him.
Yeah. But it's the relationships, right? It goes back to the connection, right? The connection that you have with Haas is different than the one that I have with him.
Yeah.
And mine was strictly, he remembers taking me to the hospital emergency room after our game up at North St. Pete, right? Like,
so wait, what happened?
Yeah, I separated my shoulder on the last play of the game. Like, we were dumb and we kicked off with like 30 seconds left in the game and got nailed on the side. And yeah, he ended up taking me to the hospital. Everybody waited on the bus while I was getting x-rays and all that fun stuff. But to this day, we kind of joke about that. And he's like, hey, you remember that hospital trip? He's like, I'm still paying for that. Like, it's just a connection that we had, right? Like,
yeah.
Other than that, I didn't even get to really play that much the rest of the year for him. So I didn't play a ton for him. But the fact that he remembers me and like, every time we see him and we're talking about games, he's like, hey, come down on the sidelines. Oh, I got a hoodie for you. Let's, that guy's the epitome of connections, right?
Yeah.
He's in the schools. He sees kids. He has effects on thousands of kids every year, right? And he connects with them, right? And he's constantly saying, hey, this and this, and helping them, encouraging them to be better. You talked about Adam's mentors, right? I can think of 3 people I know that work over there with Adam. Not a single one will say anything bad, but all 3 of them are phenomenal people.
Yeah.
Right? Phenomenal people that he works with that have something to offer, right? And I feel like every one of us does. Sometimes it takes us a little bit to get there or to figure out what our superpower maybe is in life. But if we do and grab hold of it, Adam's a perfect example. You get him on here and that's what it is. He established who he was and what he wanted to do, and he just went after it, right?
Right. I've always had a special connection with Adam. Mm-hmm. Like when we were kids and you'd have like a storm, I don't know, something that you're like scared at night.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I didn't go to my parents. I went to Adam.
Go into Adam, yeah.
And so I would go into Adam's bed and I would sleep with Adam. And his signature move would be like, he'd be like, everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just scared, whatever. And I'd get into bed, and I'm talking, we're like young, right? This isn't a month ago. Sure. and he would say, cool, man. He's like, well, I'll tell you what, if you scratch my back for 5 minutes, I'll scratch yours. And he'd fall asleep, man, every time. I don't know how many times he got me with that. I mean, I'm like 5,
Right.
And so, but I've always had this connection with Adam. And I remember, and I do with all my brothers, but I think, like, Mike was too old. Like, when we were growing up, he was the older one. He wasn't really around. We didn't have a lot in common. And then Jason and I just fought like cats and dogs. Right. And then when we were in high school, we became super close.
Yeah.
But I back to Adam. He's going to hate me for talking about all this because he's such a closed book. But
yeah.
But anyway, my whole point is the connections you can have with siblings, with family, with random acquaintances, with people in the locker room. And I think, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. I've had instances in my life, and I think your locker room could be one of these where, like, I don't know if angel is the right word, but I think people are put in certain places for a reason, and maybe even something as small as that for you was someone to come by and tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell this story. This is not my story. I listen to Andy Frisella all the time. I don't know if you're familiar with, so he's a business guy, multimillionaire, does First Form. So he does supplements, and they own supplement stores, supplement superstore. So he's got a podcast that, if you can handle the F word a lot, like it's right. The best podcast out there. But so he was walking a girl home, or walking with a girl down the street, and there was a little altercation with a guy, and the guy pulled a knife out and stabbed him. So he stabbed him in the face a few times and in the back. So just setting the stage. So he has scars on his face, like very prevalent scars on his face. And he went through a lot of depression, went through some suicidal stuff. And he's like, no one would look at you in the face. Everyone would look at the ground. People would be scared. But so he tells this story about he was in a store, a grocery store, and he passes this woman she was burned head to toe, no facial features, nothing, just scar tissue, right? And he looks up at her, and she says, what the heck happened to your face? Like, she says that to him, right?
Right.
And they both started laughing. And he said they sat there and talked, and she understood what he was going through, right? And they had this heart to heart and this connection where he started to realize, like, one, this isn't the worst thing, right? Like, so she was in a plane crash and burned head to toe. But so they had this big talk, and at the end of it, he's talked about, I don't know if he truly believes, but he's talked about, he thinks that person was put in his path on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't know. He said he's never seen her again, never knew anything about her again. But that few minutes of having that exchange with her changed his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and now, and he talks about this too. I thought it was cool. So a big reason I think I'm in business, entrepreneur, want to own businesses. I love, and it's probably a little pride thing, I love being able to have jobs available to help someone support their family. Like that's it's important to me. That's a lot of reason why I do it. So he kind of talks about that day he had at the store that changed his life for the positive. And now they employ hundreds of people that are able to provide for their families and have positive outlooks on other people's lives. They pride themselves a lot on fitness, helping people get fit, changing people's lives that way. So he talks about, like, if that didn't happen in that store, how many other people wouldn't have had their lives changed?
Right. How many other jobs would have been created? How many people wouldn't I have touched or helped become healthier or mentally stable or whatever? Yeah.
And so those little things where people can reach out, and I'm terrible at it. I think about people all the time, and I'll be like, oh, I should shoot him a text, and then I don't. And like, I'm very bad at it. Right. But I have like I've told my friends, I'm like, when they're going through stuff, siblings, marriage, whatever, like, it's on my mind. Like, I think about it a lot, and probably more than I should, like, it's their problem. Right.
Right.
But I don't know. It's just like having these, I have a lot of connections with a lot of people, and it's bettered my life, I need this, the podcast is this for me. It's a little bit of a therapy for myself,
Right. It's cheaper.
Yeah. And I get to talk to more people, not just one person taking notes.
You don't have to spill all your guts either. You can.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I think you're absolutely right. There are those connections of, like you said, one person that could change your life, right? When we first started talking about podcasts and stuff, I was working at the car dealership.
Yeah.
I'd just taken over, I think, the auto shop.
Yep.
And you know how that came to be. My mom had a stroke. And
I know this.
Okay, so about 3 years ago, my mom had a massive stroke. My dad and mom were out in the garden. She went inside. She was talking to my brother, kind of slurring her words. My dad got her to the hospital. They got medicine to her, but she had basically the equivalent of 7 strokes. And they did surgery, all this stuff. We didn't think she was going to make it. My dad called me that night, and he's like, hey, I'm not coming to work anymore. I'm done. Whatever happens here with Mom, I'm retiring. I'm done. And at the time, we had just started the shop. We were like 2 or 3 months into it. It was my dad's dream, right? Like, he was the mechanical one. He's always the mechanical one. Like, I still call him today. I'm like, hey, my car's doing this. And he's like, what does it sound? Is it a, like, oh, that's your alternator. Like, just would know, right? And I took over the shop. And literally, I spent 2 years there, and it killed me. Like, it killed me, dealing with mechanics, dealing with the general public, trying to do something I didn't have expertise in. And then, if you have to deliver a safe and you don't have the right tools, you can't really do it unless you got like 8 people.
Sure.
But if one doesn't show up and you got 6 of you and you're trying to lift that 600, it just doesn't work, right? And that was the same situation I found myself in. I could do an oil change. I could tell someone what's wrong with their car. I could drive it and be like, oh, I think it's probably this. But I wasn't going to fix it. And so if I didn't have a mechanic show up, didn't make any money that day. And if you don't make any money, then you can't stay in business, right? And so I constantly was like trying to, like, what do I do here? Like, how do I move forward, and how do I like do this? Getting back to where that ended up taking us. Here we are 3 years later. Dad's still our full-time caregiver. He's the man.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been around my dad long enough to know he always has been that person. And if you ask him now how he's doing, he's always saying, I'm great. I'm good. I'm great. How's retirement? And he's like, It's the opportunity of a lifetime. It's like, gosh, like if I could only accept instances in life and general circumstances like he does, right? So anyways, going back to this, I'd taken over and I had a friend call me up. He was briefly in my ward, maybe 6 months, almost a year maybe. His family, roughly about the same age as my kids, so we got to know each other. He's from England, so I served my mission there. We immediately had this connection of like, oh, I love your accent. Here, say bloke or bloody, right? Like, and you're like, now do it in your British accent. Oh, yes. Do it again. Like it was just kind of, we kind of had this connection immediately. And we came up with all sorts of ideas. Like we were going to be in business together. We were going to start our auto valet. And we were going to start, we had all of these different business ideas. And he's a consultant basically for businesses, everything from Fortune 500 companies to small startups, right? And so he was like talking to me about, if we built this up, we could take this and franchise it. We had these big planning and dream sessions, right? And then one day his wife made him get a job. Megan, I hope that's not true. I don't know if that's really true or not. But the way he tells it, he had to get a job for the stability, right? His wife just wanted some stability, and he took a job. He hated every minute of it. Took another couple jobs. They moved up north, disappeared. We stayed in touch, via text every once in a while or happy birthday here or there. Nothing much. I hadn't seen him for probably 3 years. And he calls me up out of the blue and he's like, hey, what are you doing this week? I'm like, just working.
Yeah.
And at the time it was like, just working,
cock the gun.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I was like, and at the time, it was 2020. We had the same pinch everyone else did. Couldn't pay for things. We're trying to help customers that don't have the money, fix people's car, get them back on the road so they could at least drive if they still had a job, like that kind of stuff. We had a big flood, flooded our entire shop, kept us out for a week, 2 feet of mud. We had a fire on one of the cars. We lost 32 cars in the flood.
Holy cow.
It was a rough year, and I was struggling. Honestly, I was struggling, and I was like I was looking for something, and what I was looking for was like, what am I doing, right? Like I wanted to have some validation in who I was and what I was doing this for, right? Like I'm not hiring the right people because I'm not providing people with jobs. Like I'm giving them jobs, but they don't want to take advantage of it. So what do, right? Like that was no good for me from a business owner standpoint. The money's good, takes care of things, right? It's not great, but you always hope that the next month will be better, right?
Yeah, I do know about that.
Yeah, right? And you always hope that you're going to do something right and land the next big, huge project or the next motor change in this case, right? Like, and he called me and he's like, hey, I'll be in town. You want to go to lunch? I'm like, sure. Went to lunch with him. He's asking me how I was doing. I was telling him I'm doing good. How it is. You put on that face. They call it fake it till you make it. It's the dumbest phrase I've ever heard, but I put on that, what I thought was this good fake face. And he's like, hey, would you be open to options like changing careers? And I'm like, I've only ever known owning businesses for one. And I've had one W-2 job my entire life, and it was at Maverick, right? Like, I don't know. What do you mean, right? And he told me about some things he was doing with some companies, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, if you feel like there's a place that I fit, yeah, let me know. He called me a week later. He's like, hey, I want to introduce you to the CEO of this company. Small company, been around 18 years, didn't know how to scale. They had real no process and procedure, but they had 20 employees, right? And he's like, I need somebody that can come in and be the people person. I'm like, well, I can deal with people, right? He's like, well, yeah, you've dealt with people your whole life. And I'm like, he's like, but I want you to do more. I want you to come in and create relationships with these people. Come in and create relationships and then help us build upon that with our counties, it's a healthcare records company for public healthcare, right? Develop relationships with these people. He put it this way. He said, I essentially want you to come in and make friends with all the Relief Society women. I'm like, okay, like that's a generalization, but sure, I'm up for it. Let's try it. Best thing ever. But changed my life. Talked to the CEO that next week. He asked me when I could start. I'm like, January 1st, I'm in. And he's like, okay, plan on Monday, take till the 4th, let's go. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And he said something to me that, like, at the time I needed to hear. Like, he just said, he said, I need you to come in and take care of these people, create these relationships. But then he said to me after I, got the job, he said, I need someone to manage relationships, and I don't know anybody that's better than that than you. And I was like, wow. He's like, that's your superpower, Ruffin. That's your superpower. You can go make friends. You can do what we need done here at this company, right? And I'm like, that's it? Like, I got to make friends?
Yeah.
I'm in,
handle
right?
that.
Yeah. And so far been like the best has been allow me to have time with my family, allow me to free up some financial freedom type things, work on some goals and some other projects that I've been putting off for years. I think my only hobby, like I said before that, had been money. And so it was like, I can fish. My wife likes quilting. And so, like, I started a quilt, like things that I could do, right? And I'm not perfect at it. I'm still learning. Like I said, I just started really hitting the gym a month ago and been sore every day since, but I feel like that opportunity was put in my lap because of him and because of the connection we made. But if you ask him, and he told me this a couple months ago, he said, when I sat down with you at Don Pedro's, he said, I looked across the table and I thought, I got to do something for my friend Ruffin. He's like, I just could see the despair that was going on there. And he's like, I have to do something for him. And he went to work and made it happen for me and my family, right? And it wasn't because of all the Sunday afternoons we spent talking or planning business ideas. It wasn't because I saved him from getting crushed by a large piece of countertop quartz, but it was just because he looked at it and he's like, hey, that's my friend and I want to help him, right? And I think that's the same type of thing, right? Like, we have these opportunities that come not by chance, but on purpose. And I think our Heavenly Father knows that. I'll keep referring to that same thing. Heavenly Father, our angels, those people who passed on before us, they're there cheering for us. They may not be right there following us around every day, but they're there cheering for us, right? And I think we have the opportunity now to make changes in people's lives, even though we don't recognize it. When we get that little prompting, that little nudge on our shoulder, we're like, I should send him a text. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to follow through on that, right? But you never know. It could just be the simple guy that touched you on the shoulder and said, hey, you doing okay, bud?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's one important thing to remember is we're all in this together. And as much pain and suffering as we have in the world, if we can be a bright light at some point for those people who are really struggling, yeah, for sure. And we never know what all the Adams or the Derricks went through, right? We don't ever know that, and it's not for us to judge, but it is easy for us to judge and be like, oh, him?
Well, I think, that's kind of a split off a part of the podcast is, and I had some say this to me the other day. They said, dude, it's cool to kind of sit back and see that all these people you've had on are from, like, they're in our community. Like, they're St. George. They're here. Right. And, we hear stories from, attempted suicides to gambling addictions to yoga to, whatever the guests that we've had on. It's like, dude, these people are making up our community and they're all around us.
Yeah. With
that said, there's a lot of us that go through the same struggles. And that's kind of what I wanted to open up the podcast to was, yeah, we have people come on. We've had ultra successful people. We've had everyday people. We've had people like me, like still trying to figure it out. And we're so similar. And like, we're all so unique, but a lot of our problems are so similar.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I've listened to like some of the other podcasts and you get people on here that like, I had depression, I went through anxiety. I mean, I think you even mentioned at one point that you'd experienced some of that. I've never experienced that. Derick, honestly, there's never been a day in my entire life that I have not felt loved. I can honestly say that. Whether it was my parents or whether it was my siblings, whether it was my friend, my spouse, my kids, I've never felt I never had a day, honestly, that I have not felt loved. And I used to think, mental mental depression, bipolar, please. That's just get out and go do something, right? Get off your butt. No, it's real.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that from a friend who went through it. Like, I didn't get to experience it, but a friend who really went through it and then shared that experience with me. And that's why this is so important. Podcasts, heaven forbid we use like Facebook stories, right? Whatever the reels are out there, right?
Yeah.
Those can really be uplifting if we really take them for what they're worth, right? And use them to build each other up, right? So,
well, people that just getting on this or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like when people get on there and they're vulnerable about what's going on in their life. And it's interesting because like when we were kids, like, well, one, we didn't have Instagram, but
right.
like you didn't want anyone to know there was any weakness.
Yeah.
And like, I would say that's kind of what our dad drilled into us, you know? And that was, I think a lot of that was like competitiveness, sports, those things. We were tough, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, we're all tough, but we all still have struggles. Like we still go through things. I've been through it. I've told stories on here where, I've never in my life thought about suicide. Like I've never gotten that far. But yeah, I've sat on the couch in a cloud, you know, and I think that's where it begins. You know, I'm very aware of myself and my feelings. And some of that for better or for worse, I'll credit it to my dad because I watched him go through it for so long and denying it and unwilling to admit that there was a problem. And so when I see it creeping up, it's very easy for me to realize it because I watched it. You know, I watched him go through it. But yeah, I commend anyone in any form, you know, media form possible. And it's not even like a pity me, I'm a victim type stuff, but just getting on and just letting people know, hey, we all go through this. Hey, we all have struggles. Hey, whatever it is.
Right.
And I think with your story with work, and I had it all written down on here, being able to pivot, being able to open to new ideas, only owned your own business and then go into this, but you just told the whole story. In the beginning, we talked about college. We talked about what you wanted to do, what you were going to college for, wanting to help people. And then I think, we can wrap this up. We're just over an hour. Well, we're just over.
I'm never in a hurry, Derick.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a perfect spot because I think at the end of this, we're tying it into, you know, I've always done these things. I've always owned businesses. You've supported family businesses for years. And now you're transitioning into this thing, I think, where you're meant to be and you're happy. And some days I'm not sure if I'm happy, but
well,
but work.
It's like we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it before or after or during the recording, but we talked about having that plan, right? You know, like I had that plan. Like it was never part of the plan. Part of the plan was being successful, right? Yeah. Like making $100,000 a year or being able to finally afford a new car for my wife, right? Like that was part of the plan, but like it's just making that first step in the direction, right? And I'm not there. I'm just learned that my superpower was making friends, right? Like now what am I gonna do? I
knew
right?
that.
Right? Like yeah, like now what am I gonna do? But like for me that was, you know, like really eye-opening, and it really brought it back to like it's just taking a step and it's just moving in that right direction, right? Or at least starting to go towards something.
Yeah.
You may not know what it is, but just making a step and then encouraging people along the way, right? Like you mentioned podcasts and all these other fun things that are out there. We get so much crap from everywhere else, from Netflix dramas and heaven forbid, Walt Disney sitcoms, whatever, right? We get enough garbage from those things that it's good to see vulnerable people, especially vulnerable males.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of times people are so into this whole toxic masculinity and right. But to see that men have these issues too, we still have feelings, right? We don't have to bury them like our parents did. We don't have to pretend that we're bigger and better and badder than that. But at the same time, being able to tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey brother, how can I help you? What can I do for you, right? I still think back to the first time your mom came into the car lot and she bought a 98 Ford Taurus. I mean, we're talking, gosh, 10.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
10, 15 years ago. She took such good care of that. But just having her tell us her story, right? Like, I didn't know your mom in high school, but get to know her even then just drew me that much closer to her. And her sharing her vulnerabilities. I think it was close to right around the time your dad passed anyway. And maybe
It's when they're divorced, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Close to that.
But she was going through something, and she was telling us, and with a big smile on her face, right? Like, just to think through, like, those types of things and just realize that, hey, we all have those. We all have those issues. We all have our ups and downs. And in this sea of swirling, suffering garbage that's out there, you get the person that gets on and is like, hey, I did 10 push-ups today. I got this, right? Like,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Progress, yeah.
Right? Hey, I just started my business, been 4 years. 4 years, Derick. Like 2 years ago, you couldn't even have imagined that it would be 4 years, right?
Right.
And to see like the progression that people get just out of a little bit, right? And then to be able to take that and uplift other people. So much sweeter.
Yeah. No, I mean, since we really started talking more when I would come to the car lot and just mix it up with you guys, I mean, like I tried to do a little oil change business at one point, and I knew I was like, well, I'm gonna go hit up the Judds because I know they'll support me in this. So that's where I'm trying to go with this end part right here is there's been even cars. So that Taurus, our minivan, I bought a minivan from you for our mail route.
For the mail route, right? Yeah.
That's still running.
It's awesome.
When we bought that thing, I was like, dude, if this gets me through 4 months, I'm
right.
jacked.
I remember that. I remember that. You're like,
strip
if
the
I could get
seats.
4 years, it's worth every penny of it, right? Yeah.
And I was actually telling someone that story the other day.
Still running. That's
still going.
Got to be like 6 years now. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that thing runs, I don't know, 70 miles a day.
That's great. That's great.
But I remember I've had multiple instances where I've thought, even just with your guys' access to the car lot, of I knew I could go in and ask, for a favor, or not even a favor, but just, hey, I need this. What do you guys got? And I knew 100% I was taken care of. And it wasn't even like taking care of a customer, but that's your guys' personality. It was your dad's personality. I think he sets that tone for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
But every one of your siblings that I've ever interacted with, it's been that way.
Yeah.
And so it's always meant something to me. So I appreciate it. And that's part of the reason I reached out to you when I started this. I thought, man, mainly because you and I can just go,
Right.
We can just flow. And I was nervous of that when I started this.
Right.
I was like, even
Can
people
I keep something going. Yeah.
Yeah. Like even if someone's successful, can you carry a conversation with them? Or someone's been through something. Can you carry a conversation? And like, I'm fairly confident I can.
Right.
I mean, we've had some times where I'm like scrambling in my notes, with other guests, trying to get into something. But yeah, there was a handful of people like you where I was like, okay, I could bring him in and we can just talk for an hour and be fine.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you invited me. So thanks for letting me be on.
Yeah. Thanks for all your help through the years, man. I seriously, I appreciate it. I mean, you're a little older than me, but I've always felt like we've had a friendship since the day I walked in probably to the car dealership and was like, where have you been?
Most likely. Right. Yeah. Back when I finally got back into town.
Yeah.
It's good to be in St. George, though, for sure.
Cool.
Be back with all the friends. So.
Yeah, dude, I think that's a good spot to wrap it up.
Sweet.
And
Sounds
then we'll bring you back on and see how the software stuff's going.
See if we can land the sales that we got.
There you go.
I'm working with the Department of Correction tomorrow for the whole state.
Really?
Their epidemiologist in their tuberculosis program. So, yeah, we're making big waves out there.
Good.
Hopefully. We're the next unicorn company.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
like to tell people. So.
What's this unicorn thing? Shout that out because we were talking about it right before we started. So anyone that's on video.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a company that my wife and I met at a photography convention. My wife does photography stuff, just mostly for friends and family and stuff. But they have an AI software. I'm big into the software stuff now. Ever since getting into the software industry and seeing what people develop and what they can create, they've got an artificial intelligence that chooses your pictures for you, right? Like
So it'll comb through
Yeah,
thousands.
So you take the same picture 5 times. I don't know if any of you other guys out there that have this same problem, but my wife takes a picture of our family like 20 times. She's like, "Oh, I didn't get it. We got to do it again." And I'm like, but she never deletes any of them, right? These guys cull through it. They have artificial intelligence that culls through it based off of your personality and off of your previous preferences. So they like go and they say, "Oh, this one's a duplicate. This one's got a head turn. This one's got eyes closed." And then based off of your current work, your future work, it changes based off of your preference. So helps you cull through thousands of pictures, saves you hours of time.
And it's called what?
After shoot.
Yeah,
I don't know much more about him other than
no,
we did a little bit of.
For people on video, he's got a unicorn shirt on, so we thought we would shout it out.
Yeah, unicorn.
After shoot. My mom would have saved years of her life if that was around when we were kids.
Right? Yeah, my wife uses it. I don't know how much she loves it or not, but I just was fascinated. The guy at the booth was super friendly and outgoing salesman guy, but then he had his developers there that were like working on the software while people were going through this booth, and he introduced you to them, and they're like,
that's the reason he's there.
My name's Jadib Pramuk. And I was like, yeah, this guy's a genius. He's the one who created the software. Yeah, I helped. Like it was awesome.
He's like, I know things.
Just intriguing. Of all the thousands of vendors that were there, that was the one that one, they have a sweet logo, but 2, I was fascinated by there.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys. This has been Ruffin Judd. This is episode 46. That was fun. I'm glad that we got you on. I didn't know what we were going to talk about, to be honest. I just knew we would get somewhere. Yep. So hopefully you guys have pulled some stuff out of this. Remember, give us comments, give us questions. You can message me directly. You can message the podcast directly. Social media.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram.
What's your just Ruffin Judd?
Ruffin Judd. Yep.
Ruffin.
Yep.
Ruffin.
Yep.
Blue Form Media. Anything you guys got? We love to hear from it. We have a lot of people that will just be like, hey, love the podcast with Trevor Davenport. Or hey, love the podcast with so and so. Or hey, this was cool that they talked about this. And it's cool to hear that kind of stuff. So if you guys feel the need, throw a comment in, maybe message us. I always comment on Apple because I don't have Apple, but I guess you can rate 5-star and you can do a review and stuff on Apple Podcast. I listen to it on Spotify, or if I'm home sometimes, I'll just put it on the TV on YouTube. So it's on everything. All right, guys, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week.